Steve, we appreciate some time this morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well, guys. Got 8 hours sleep for the first time in about a week, so feeling strong.
I was going to ask, how's the week been? I mean, this is Christmas for you, literally.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and when you work with a lot of great people, it's easy to have it all corralled.
I want to, before we get into some LSU stuff and a little bit of national stuff as well, obviously we're a couple years in now to this early signing period. What do you think that has done to the recruiting landscape and how our program's handling it?
Well, obviously it's pushed it up 2 months with the early signing period becoming National Signing Day. And the college coaches, they certainly have a lot to balance in getting to this point. But now, after the holidays, it's made things a lot easier for them to continue to prepare for their bowl games and even start getting things in order for spring football with less recruiting to be done in January and February.
We know that LSU's bread is going to always be buttered in-state. They're going to get the best players from the state of Louisiana, which is, generally speaking, a solid backbone for your team. But this year the state didn't quite produce as much. So they went out of state as much as they have in program history. Obviously, we know Ed Ogeron's reputation and the fact that he's been all over the country, but you cover this on a national level. LSU's brand seems to be maybe as strong as ever right now. What is your kind of perception of LSU nationally?
Well, there's a few teams recruiting at a higher level than others. You have Clemson, you have Alabama, you have Ohio State, you have LSU, and you have Georgia. And those schools, they're going all over the country and scouring for blue chippers and fighting it out a lot of times amongst themselves. Maybe one time you're battling Clemson for a kid, and maybe in another recruitment you're battling Ohio State or Alabama for a kid. But the way these teams are producing and how hard their head coaches are working on the trail and their assistants, you're seeing it pay dividends for them come the early signing period.
Steve Shea here. And guys, if you don't follow Steve, his national work, Wiltfong 247 on Twitter, he is the best in the biz. I appreciate you joining us. We were talking earlier in the show about, speaking of national recruiting, or to an extent, Georgia, not far from LSU, Arik Gilbert. And LSU got a few kids from Georgia, Max Johnson, Phillip Webb, B.J. Ojulari. But I look at Arik Gilbert, and Hunt asked me who might be the most early impact guy on this team. And I think if most people would look at the list and say Gilbert, what you know about this kid, Steve, what you've seen on film, all that, how does people say is the highest ranked, and we've said it, the highest rated at least, or ranked, tight end in 24/7 history, I believe highest ranked. Like, how freakish is this guy? Like, compared to each year when you turn on tight end film and then you turn on Arik Gilbert's?
Well, Arik Gilbert, 6'6", 250 pounds, and incredibly smooth. He's going to walk in physically ready to make an impact for the LSU Tigers. We've seen him dominate national showcases, the opening finals. I believe he led all pass catchers in reception. So he's a go-to guy, sure-handed, smooth route runner. He can separate, but he can obviously beat you with physicality and downfield speed. He's the biggest mismatch in this class. Who are you going to check him with? A corner? Are you going to check him with a safety? Are you going to check him with a linebacker? The combination of what he brings to the field is absolutely tremendous. And it's shown up on the football field in high school. He caught 101 passes as a senior for almost 1,800 yards and had 14 touchdowns. He caught nearly 250 passes in his career and has close to 4,000 yards receiving. You won't find a lot of receivers that signed this week with numbers like that. And he's used as a receiver. And LSU is going to be able to move him around all over. We talk about Joe Brady and the creativity to the passing game that they brought to LSU this year. Arik Gilbert, they're going to be able to move him around, and he's going to be a nightmare for defenses in the SEC.
Steve, a lot was made of the two wide receiver defections in Jarrett and Burton that didn't end up in Baton Rouge, but one that did is Kayshon Boutte from New Iberia here in Louisiana. He's a guy that Shea's talked about potentially getting a fifth star based on his participation in some All-Star games coming up. Kayshon Boutte, 6-foot wide receiver from here in New Iberia. What do you know about him?
Well, he rushed for almost 1,000 yards as a senior and had over 1,000 yards receiving. So he's the guy that they decided, look, you're going to have to intercept the ball from the center and the quarterback if you don't want Kayshon Boutte to touch it down there at Westgate High School. And he was also dynamic on special teams, returned a couple kicks for scores, returned a punt for a score. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see him make an impact at LSU in that regard.
Steve, what can LSU do? I guess it's a combo, too, of the offense, which was so different than it's been in years past. And I know Caleb Williams for next year jumps out at people, a quarterback. You actually probably cover him as well as anybody out there, but also just being 13-0 and all that. Like, what sort of jump in recruiting did a team like Georgia make when they were undefeated and playing in SEC championships and the playoffs? Because we've seen Clemson, you mentioned it, Bama, Ohio State. These teams are consistently recruiting well, but they've also been in the playoffs. Like, LSU's going to the playoffs for the first time, and they usually recruit well. Can we expect a jump in 2021? Are kids out there saying, hey, look, are they putting LSU in that group of I'd love to go check out that place. They're pretty good.
Well, we've saw it this cycle with LSU already, Shea, as you know, because LSU, they traditionally have recruited well in the 24/7 sports landscape. When you look at the class ranking, and you see them in a lot of top 10s. But there was always these battles late where maybe they didn't close how they wanted to. And LSU had some big wins this cycle where maybe they weren't going to eke them out. They finished second a lot last cycle. They
Right.
win Arik Gilbert this cycle. Elias Ricks cancels all his official visits that he was going to take. He's solid. Philip Webb, they beat Alabama and Auburn and Florida for Philip Webb, which I think is one of the more impressive recruiting wins for the Tigers this cycle. That's one that's not getting enough hype because Philip Webb was a pretty low-key guy through the process, but he was highly coveted by LSU's peers in this class. He's got a chance to be he is the pass rusher in this class. So he's the guy that's going to obviously be paired with B.J. Ojulari, but I think Philip Webb's going to be that double-digit type sack guy for LSU down the road. And so winning those, not seeing Keishawn Butte flip on you, I think we saw a difference there, and certainly maybe even more so in 2021 with guys like Caleb Williams, the five-star quarterback, who I think is the most important player on the board for LSU next year because for them to keep this thing rolling, QB1's got to be sound and solid, and I think Caleb Williams is a guy that has the potential to win a Heisman Trophy and win you a national championship down the road.
Wow. High praise there. Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 247 Sports, joins us. Steve, what can you tell us about Zach Evans, the talented running back out of the Houston area, and LSU's prospects, because they need to land a running back here in the next 4 or 5 weeks?
Well, so the number one running back in the 24/7 Sports top 247 player rankings, Alabama led in the spring. I don't know if they were ready to take him at that time. And then you have Georgia taking momentum in the summer going into the fall. Not sure Georgia was then ready to take him again early in the fall. He gets everything in a line and in a row. LSU's is consistent with anyone there. He's been to Baton Rouge a bunch. As Shea's reported on Go 247, he's been to camp every year. Went to a game this year. Took an official visit. I think that they clearly took control of this recruitment late in the fall. But one coach in the SEC told me early in the process, pick Texas A&M and don't keep up with the twists and turns. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. I've been riding the roller coaster. And so here we are. We're at the end, and you have LSU, and then of course you have Texas A&M. He snuck on the A&M's campus, and they got the last visit, to my knowledge, and I think they're in the thick of it. One source recently told me 60-40 LSU, and we'll see what he does at the Under Armour game.
Steve, I'll get you out of here on this one, and just out of curiosity, I was looking at the recruiting rankings, the team rankings that y'all put out, and what is going on at the University of Southern California with Clay Helton? Can you explain that?
Well, it'd be tough for anyone to recruit with what they've gone through over the last year with their head coach's job under speculation the entire cycle. And then with that, you have Clemson and Alabama and LSU and Ohio State going out there to California. It's easier to get to know these blue chippers earlier through social media and get their film earlier because of outlets like Huddle. And these young men are able to get to campuses more earlier in the process. When USC is not putting the same kind of product on the field as them, or even Oregon. Oregon's landed the number one player in the state of California 2 cycles in a row now. And Arizona State, they have an uptick with all the NFL names on their staff and that experience. USC, their coach on the hot seat again going into next year. It's going to be Groundhog Day unless they can take what they currently have on the roster and have a big year of development, and they can come out and be more consistent, stay healthy next fall. or it's going to be more of the same.
See, we really appreciate a few minutes of your time this morning. Get some rest. We'll do this whole thing over again come the late signing period here in February.
Guys, happy holidays, and get your fix on Go 247. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Steve.